Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Wireheads. This is episode 16. I am your host, Diamond Dust. It is just me tonight. Emmerron is currently out enjoying the holiday with family. So I am taking over for tonight because, well, I'm home. I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and to all of my fellow United States citizens, happy Independence Day tomorrow, I guess, or whenever this episode comes out, probably a few days later on YouTube or Spotify. I would like to, of course, wish all of you guys a wonderful holiday. Be safe, be smart, and as always, welcome back to Wireheads. Yes, it is on Spotify. Scarlett, hello. And don't worry, chat. I will be a little bit more reactive to you because it is just kind of us today. It's just two of us, chat. But for starts, I wanted to talk about backgrounds today because I was sitting here kind of thinking, oh shit, I didn't get any topics together for today. And then I realized, wait, I got friends, and then I asked, like, you guys got any ideas? And Scarlett talked about, backgrounds and how they impact characters. I thought about it. And, I figured I could probably make a 2.5 hour episode about this. So, here we are. For those of you guys that are normally over on Emmerron's channel, I hope you have found your way over here. I know I'm not the funny streamer man, but I hope I'm an acceptable substitute. And of course, if you guys have any questions for me today, let me know so that way I can put them on our Q&A docket. And anyway, for starts, my first topic is we're going to be talking about player characters when they have different experiences from us. When we are playing characters that don't share similarities to us, and how do we find ways to relate to it. And what this has to do with backgrounds is of course life path, which we'll discuss on the second half of the episode, but this I feel applies to a much more broad spectrum of games outside Cyberpunk. But for the examples given, we are going to be using Cyberpunk RED. And as always, I've heard it from many GMs before. There will always be a piece of you in your character, no matter who you're playing as. So, the question is that I've decided to propose to myself, and that we'll find an answer to tonight, is what happens when we play a character that just, outside maybe being, your name is in the player section of the sheet, you have nothing in common with the character. And I thought when we sat down previously, I thought we had covered all this, but apparently we've never actually talked about these kinds of matters. So when I refer to player character, just to set the ground on what a player character is. A player character is the character that you, the player, play as in the tabletop role-playing game. Okay? Pretty straightforward. We have NPCs, which are non-player characters. Figured I would just at least lay out the groundwork for that. And what I mean by different experiences is they have a different life. They have different memories. They experience things that we haven't. So, let's say, for example, me. In real life, I am a security guard. I work overnight, filing paperwork, and previously watching over properties when I was out on patrol. Alright, nothing too crazy. Yes, I've had a rough up here or two there, But I've never been in like any really really serious situations that uh were like weeks on end. However, I want to play a solo. Solos tend to be hardened combat veterans or other very very talented combatants that show up in the Time of the Red, and they bring a form of either martial prowess, marksmanship, or even just straight up raw strength that I personally cannot relate to. I also may not relate to, a veteran's background. I may not understand a lot of these things. And you know what? That's okay. The best way to fix these kinds of situations is, first things first, read about the setting that you're playing in. When you take time to learn or read, in the case of Cyberpunk, we have books upon books galore that just have lore that will help you understand who you are in the Time of the Red. And perhaps you might see some of these things and you might relate to it a little bit. Personally, for me, I've never lived in a tough neighborhood. I've never lived in a neighborhood where you had to, just wonder, were those fireworks or were those gunshots? I've never lived in a neighborhood where if you were walking down the wrong side of the street, you were likely going to get mugged. For me, I had a much more rural background. So, to be honest, I kind of understand some of the nomads that came from the Midwest. And I understand, the harshness of farm life. And you might be wondering, how does this relate to your character? Because maybe your character might be a guerrilla gardener. They might understand that, your crops are going to be your most important thing that helps you get on with your life. However, if they fail, you might as well be starving for the next month, or getting by on meager rations. But when we play characters who are different from us, we have to take a moment to really look at who we're playing as, why we want to play this person, and then ask ourselves, what can we pull from the books to really learn more about who we are? For example, maybe you're playing a Fourth Corporate War veteran. The Firestorm series from Cyberpunk 2020. I know we do Cyberpunk RED here, but Cyberpunk 2020 has a lot of information on the Fourth Corporate War. That is a great resource to look into when it comes to dealing with such things like that. Take time to read about life during the war. Maybe your solo, who's a Fourth Corporate War vet, is resourceful. They know how to make ends meet when they're trying to complete jobs. Or perhaps they may have been one that fell through the system. And literally all they know how to do is kill. And that is how they picked up the profession of being a solo. That they just couldn't find any other way to get back into society. And when we look at rocker boys have a following. I myself kind of see rocker boys, such as, for example, having, big social media presence where you could sway people with just your opinion. That's fantastic. That is very much a way that you could relate to the rocker boy. Find ways, find stuff in your life that may not be you directly, and then take that and apply it to whatever you're looking into. So for me, when I thought about playing as a rocker boy at one point, I had to consider, what was it like to, be able to sway people with just sheer force of personality. And yeah, you have, examples in the game, such as, of course, Johnny Silverhand. And you have to take a moment to look at all this. But then we look IRL. I one of my first thoughts when it comes to people that just can sway opinions, sway what people feel, is of course your big personalities such as Taylor Swift. You have people that, when you have fans that refer to themselves as a certain culture, such as Swifties, or like, there's a whole variety of different nicknames out there. I personally am not a fan of Taylor Swift, so I don't know what the culture's like. But you have fans that will do anything for their, celebrity of choice. I mean, for an example, there are VTubers out there, and there are clips out there of VTubers being handed, for example, $5,000. That is what like being a high-level rocker boy is. You are given, these very big advantages by that means. An exec. I personally don't know what it's like being an exec. I don't know what corporate life is like. I don't know what the hustle is in the office. However, you could always look to media. There is great shows out there that probably cover life in the office, except The Office. I'm sorry, The Office is not funny. That's it. That's my hot take for today's episode. But there are shows out there that show corporate life and the pressures that come with it. There's even films out there that cover what it's like, where, you are doing everything, even up to a point where it's very morally ambiguous, possibly just straight up illegal, to get ahead in your career, get ahead in the market. And you have to, take a moment, sit down, and decide, is that going to be the kind of exec I want to play? Because I don't know what it's like to be an exec, but surely this kind of media really portrays execs in this light, and I find this to be very compelling. And I think that's great. There is all sorts of fantastic media for every type of role out there. Speaking of media, some of you guys, you don't know what it's like to be, newscasters. You don't know what it's like to try to have to deliver hard-hitting information to sway the masses. Yet, we see YouTubers out there or newscasters out there who, go out and they perform, for example, Chris Hansen. I use Chris Hansen because I follow a lot of Chris Hansen's work. I think what he does is fantastic. I know there is controversy about it, and you as a media, when you start doing these big stories, you're going to have some controversy about you. You're going to have stories that aren't going to stick, that might make people feel a certain way about you that you don't want them to feel. Yet you're delivering, hard-hitting information, delivering the facts, and giving people the information that maybe others just don't want to cover. I suppose, a great example would be from Neon Inferno with Matchlight. Matchlight's a media from Emmerron's campaign Neon Inferno, who has been the face of the revolutionary movement that broke down the wall between the old combat zone and the Glen. And Matchlight has continued to film and expose people for the horrible things that they've done, so that way, you can't... He's hanging out the dirty laundry. You see other newscasters out there who go out and dig around for the source to find the information, confront people with the information, and you know, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of the young man from Australia who had to flee Australia because of a organization basically firebombing his house. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but that. Would you like a co-host? I can give you an hour or two. I suppose so, Scarlett, we can definitely bring you on. I will go ahead and jump into. Let me go jump into collab. And anyway, when we hi Scarlett. What? Friendly Jordies, thank you so much. Everybody, please welcome Scarlett to the show. I will bring you in here one way or another, Scarlett, one sec. But as I was talking about, you know, being in media, you may not relate with being someone that pushes the information out there. You might not perhaps be a lawman. You may not have worked in security forces. You may have not done peacekeeping. You may not have done any of that. But of course, yep.
You've read a lot of books, you know?
Discord was muted.
So
yeah.
Oh, it was muted. Great.
Sorry, but I think it picked up on, you know, what media and all that.
I was saying before I was muted, you have played a lot of video games, you have watched a lot of movies and TV shows, but you know how cops act, you know how rocker boys act. You can base a character on that stuff. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like with my example earlier about execs, where, you know, there is just media out there. And hell, even in the Cyberpunk RED core rulebook, there is a whole, like, spilling of, like, a whole buffet of books and movies to go out and watch. I mean, hell, there's even games out there I'd recommend besides Cyberpunk 2077 by CD Projekt Red. Deus Ex. Adam Jensen is like the I don't know, like, yeah, he's security director, but I feel Adam Jensen really screams solo. Very much solo, with maybe a few ranks in exec.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't exactly say that. You spend most of the game either shooting or sneaking. Less running companies or any groups like that. Like, yeah. Okay. I'm trying to give you a video. It's just not working.
No worries. I got you. I'm dropping your PNG in here.
Yeah, I don't know why video is just not giving me a link.
But the like some of the other things when it comes to backgrounds, though, you may not know what it's like to live a wealthy life, but you see it in magazines. You see it in books. Like, for example, you know, and the only reason I make reference to The Great Gatsby in this situation is because of the simple fact that some of the inspirations for Cyberpunk RED was actually inspired on the late 1800s, early 1900s, and some of the horrific conditions that people would live in, and yet there'd be the lavish people up top. You'd have, you know, you'd like you see the big spread of wealth between people, and so for most of us, we don't. For most of us, we don't know what it's like being up top. We don't know what it's like, you know, being in that 1%. Unless for some reason there might be one of you that's in the 1% that might be watching this. Hi, nice to meet you. It's a very different world up there with a different set of problems. Which, I mean, I imagine, there's plenty of movies that talk about, when people make their rise to fame and all the bad shit that comes with it. I mean, we see rock stars who, start off from humble beginnings and then end up in the 27 Club a few years later. And for any of you guys who may not understand I think it's a 27 Club. That's what it's referred to, right?
I don't recall. The 27 Club?
Basically, a lot of famous rock stars have died on their 27th birthday, or died at the age of 27.
That's not exactly something I've heard, but that seems plausible.
I know Hitman makes a reference to it, but you have so many of these different forms of media and IRL things that have happened out there that you can look at it and really pull inspiration from it. An inspiration for example, like Scarlet, your VTuber, Scarlet. Revy was an inspiration for you from Black Lagoon.
Originally. Yeah, originally.
So, I mean, not all characters have to be inspired off of stuff from your own personal experiences, folks. One of the other pitfalls that I've seen people fall into as well when they look at their backgrounds is just like, I don't know what that culture is like. And that is something that we'll also cover later. Just make sure when you create this character that it's not too far out of your comfort zone. I personally, I grew up in the rural Midwest. Dia is from South Night City, really rough neighborhood. I don't know what that's like. It took me some time to really go out. Channel 5, the YouTube channel, Channel 5. Great, he's a great example of a media, but he's shown like the rough urban life out there. I remember watching this with a few friends, and the videos on San Francisco, and hell, that's where I even learned what this term called bipping is.
You are April O'Neil.
Yes, April O'Neil. Yeah, fantastic.
You are April O'Neil. Yeah. You're in the sewers talking to, turtles and probably a rat. Who knows? Depends if he's dead or not.
I've had this weird parody of it, of just a redhead on meth talking to, or on drugs in the New York City subway, talking to a giant rat and some turtles.
I have sent you the video. Like, I finally fixed it.
Oh boy. All right, let me bring you in, Scarlet. And one of the other things that I'd like to also show is like when we look at like the poor backgrounds, a lot of us don't know what it's like being, dirt poor.
Do you not know what it's like to have macaroni and cheese and tuna, and that be like the only thing you have?
Okay, but hear me out. Saltines and peanut butter for a day.
Saltines and chocolate syrup.
There was a time I couldn't afford chocolate syrup because it had a bit of a markup because it had a certain giant candy company's name on it.
No. You don't go for name brand. You go for store brand.
That's the problem. There wasn't a store brand.
Well, that is a problem, isn't it? Stupid Hershey.
But all right. Let me get you loaded in here, Scarlet. And there we go. We'll just green screen you. But yeah, I mean, for example, Scarlett, one of your upcoming characters is doing a redo on your Tech Ninja. Have you ever studied ninjutsu?
Once.
Oh, okay, all
I
right,
have, yeah. No, like
all right.
I have read up on it. I have looked into it.
Okay, so you've read up on it, but you've never actively practiced the arts to a point that you are a proficient user of it.
No, I more martial arts because there's a whoa, you're never mind. More martial arts, but there's a lot of overlapping. There's a lot of overlapping rules, I guess. Methodologies.
All right, so the Wireheads background isn't actually a clear background, Jeepers.
Oh,
Hold on.
my god.
I got this. I got this. Don't worry, folks. This is under control. We got this.
What if I made it worse for you?
Please don't.
What if I just started moving around myself? What if I just started like...
All right. There we go. But anyway, when it comes to these different experiences, something else I would like to mention when it comes to different experiences. Some of you guys have never shot firearms before. You guys never used firearms. You've never used weapons. You don't need to know how to do that when you're playing a game. Again, you're playing a tabletop game with friends who probably have had no experience whatsoever, you know, committing illegal acts for money. Okay? Well, that might be up to debate. I don't know what your table is like, but who knows? Oh well.
I might be a criminal. You don't know.
What are you, a cop? Anyway, I've considered when making a character though, taking time to really look into media, and when you find media that speaks out to you, your characters tend to flesh out a lot better. Scarlett, have you ever had like any of those experiences where, you know, media really spoke out to the character you were creating?
All of the time. All of the time. I mean, every character I build is based on... is a derivative of something I've seen or liked from a video game, a movie, a TV show. Sometimes it's a combination of them. It's just what I do.
So, for example, actually, you know what? I think Taz would be a great example. Tell everyone about Taz.
Taz is Junker Queen.
All right, so...
And it's simple, it's just Junker Queen. From Overwatch. I thought it would just be fun to be like a really loud, rambunctious character. Less serious, more wanting the fun in life.
And, you know, that's great. But last I checked, you're not Australian. You have not lived in a anarchic Mad Max-like society. And also, you haven't had to deal with people in a very violent manner to the point of causing them to be exiled. So, I mean, we're going three for three like there.
But I have been stabbed, yeah.
Well, as someone who's been shot, I mean, we kind of take those experiences a little bit there. But you still create a really good character without having, you know, shared that kind of background with the character in mind. Meanwhile, I do see some people that literally play themselves as a stand-in in-game, which honestly, it's okay. If you
I did that for our first crew.
That tends to happen. That tends to happen with your first go of things. Anyway, that you'll really pull from yourself when you're pouring it into a game.
It was less about that and more wanting kind of a separate lore for myself
Mm-hmm.
for my VTuber. Um, but by the end of it, it was just getting too stressful to keep up with. It was like I was dreading coming to play every week.
Yeah, I mean,
For that
Cyberpunk
one
is a
day
deadly
where
game.
for that one day where Roll20 just decides it doesn't like you and gives you all ones.
Oh yeah, and I suppose that's part of something that I really try to encourage players to, you know, step away from your characters a little bit. Like, don't just make yourself, because, like, in a game like Cyberpunk, your character could just die on a bad day. You could have a real bad day. You could have some real bad rolls, or you might just come across that one person who might have just had the lucky shot with the gun Martin gauge. Hi, I was the one that had
Yeah,
I had
Roll20.
I had a booster ganger that blasted a group with a gun Martin gauge. Rolled the best roll I've ever rolled on a rocket launcher with that piece of shit. And, you know, it's one of those things where I really, really hope that, you know, like, you guys love your characters, you're invested in them, but at the same time, when you get like attached to a point where you don't want them to die, it's totally understandable. It can be a little stressful. I don't want that for you guys. Um, when I'm also when I'm also talking about backgrounds as well, when you create background, or when you look into like how your character is different from you, it also creates these moments for you to learn. Maybe you need to, take another pass through Cyberpunk 2077. If you're, let's say you're using the Cyberpunk Edge Runners mission kit, and maybe you need to have a second look at like what Pacifica looks like, or perhaps Watson. So some of us, we haven't lived in Chinatown districts or places that are run down, or bustling city centers. It's a very different experience.
You ever been in the middle of a big city at night at like 3 or 4 in the morning?
Yes, I have. Washington, D.C. back in 2015.
I used to do a lot of work in Boston that would normally have me leaving that job at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and it is dead silent. There's no cars anywhere on the road. Everything is just gone. Which I can kind of see happening in Night City, but it's a little bit more active because it's bigger, denser living situations.
And also, Night City is a city that never sleeps. Like, there is, like, places are open 24/7 there, it seems. And those that are closed, well, it might be having their shit broken into. And you have gangs that go out and prowl at night. And for me, when I was working security, it was over in the next city over from where I live, and it's one of those cities that shuts down at night. And before I started working that job, I would only be there during the day or like in the early evening. And, there'd be cars on the road. There'd be people on the sidewalks. The shops would be open. And, I'd be patrolling through there at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's dead silent. All that's going on is the flickering of street lamps and maybe a few lights that stay on after hours. And
it's not that like Boston is a city that shuts down at night. It's just nobody lives in the city part of it. It's always the urban part of it that more or less people live in. Like it's mostly lots of smaller, compact businesses put together.
Mm-hmm.
So when nobody's working, there's nobody there, obviously.
And I suppose one of the other things that we have to look at when the character's background is different from yours and your character has different experiences, don't be afraid to tailor those experiences a little bit. Find a way to make it relate a little bit closer to you. You don't have to be like fully separate, but maybe you have you've done something that might be an extension of what your med tech has done. Perhaps maybe instead of, your med tech who is this helter skelter doc running a small clinic out of a combat zone, maybe you're an EMT. Maybe you don't really have like any in-hospital experience. Being part of trauma team would make a lot of sense for you, but you don't want that, and that's totally fine.
Honestly, I think what it comes down to the most is like, even though you might not have had these experiences in the past, put yourself in the boots of your character and kind of handle it in a way you would, given your, given the situation, given your character's backgrounds, how they normally deal with people, even however you rolled your character's personality traits. Even if your character is going to be, serious all the time, you would probably think of serious solutions to your problem.
And that's the stuff that we will cover in the latter half of the episode, actually.
Fair.
With that in mind, though, like, some of the experiences you may have had may have not been direct, but like as Scarlett has mentioned before, media is a great way to do this. Let me go actually grab this out of the book itself. Right here. For anyone who's got the core rule book, page 389, there is a short list of some films that, maybe you haven't lived in, dystopian dark future, but these are some great films that reach out to this. We've got, of course, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, which that is one of the grandfathers of cyberpunk.
Does that imply there's also an Old MacDonald, but he's also electric?
Perhaps. Look.
Or is he an android?
I mean, maybe depending on the universe. If it's LA in the Blade Runner universe, very likely a replicant.
I'm thinking about it. I think Old MacDonald would be less of an android and more of an iPhone.
Oh my god. I know where this joke's going.
Like you're an android.
At least I can repair myself a little bit more easily.
Open source.
When Gravity Fails and A Fire in the Sun. I haven't had a chance to read those two books yet, but I've heard good things about them. Neuromancer, Count Zero, Mona Lisa Overdrive, and Burning Chrome by William Gibson. Those are a little bit more, it's a bit retro, it's a bit dated, but there is good stuff in there. Hell, I think that's actually where the Cyberdeck even came from, is Neuromancer. Trouble and Her Friends. I haven't had a chance to read that one. I'm currently reading Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. It's got like a PH.
I know it's a PH,
yeah,
but it's like Steven. It's still like Stevenson.
Wasn't sure exactly. Currently started reading that, and
franchise. Maybe they're one of those people that are just like Stefanson.
Oh my gosh! But like that's a like Snow Crash to me. Like when I read that, like how there's all these different franchises that own these communities that, or like these different, like literally their business is owning this community and running this community. It makes me think back to like when I was working for the old company that I used to be with, where I would be patrolling gated communities, and sometimes with these gated communities they gave their security personnel a little bit more a little bit more to how they handle things. And like just the way everything's read in there, where it follows, like everything is very systematically down to making another dollar, making another credit, making, all that money. That it's everything is like so transactional.
I mean, I could recommend some movies. I wouldn't say all of them are good, but I can recommend some movies, some TV media.
Let's see what you got, and I'll see what's I'll see if it's actually mentioned here in the book. What do you got?
Repo Men.
Repo, yeah.
Which isn't a great movie. Repo Men is interesting.
Yeah.
You can't pay for a lung, so some people come and take it from you.
But that shit happens in Cyberpunk.
Yeah. I was just watching Judge Dredd.
A
couple days ago.
I don't think Judge Dredd's even mentioned in here. Call back to the 90s. Max Headroom. Talking AIs delivering the news to you. That's something that.
Would he technically be considered the first VTuber?
I don't know. I'm not sure how far back virtual personalities go, but when we look at this, sure, we don't have the experiences that our characters have of where there's just AIs that handle everything for us. But when we look at something such as Max Headroom, like that's something that kind of touches on it to a degree that we can experience. Alien and Aliens apparently is on the list.
I mean, I'm not sure I ever really agreed with that one, though. In terms of what, though? The technology?
I wonder if it's the tech or maybe how the employees have to operate. Where it's just like, do this job or die.
Yeah, I mean...
Either way, they all die.
That's kind of a stretch. I think that's kind of a stretch. So you could have pointed it to so many better medias, I think, than Alien. Alien...
I might have to ask about that one, like how Alien ended up on the list.
I mean, I was watching Judge Dredd. I think Judge Dredd is a good...
it's a very good example.
Is a good example, especially if you're trying to play a lawman type of character. Because in this universe, there are no more court systems. A judge is a police, an executioner, and the judge all at the same time.
Yeah, I mean that
judge, jury, and executioner, as well as the police.
I mean that really screams like someone like Max Tack, where Judge Dredd, like seeing those, just like where Max Tack would just come in. You don't get your right to trial. You get the right to the business end of a rail cannon.
So I guess some other medias. There's Ghost in the Shell.
Yes,
the anime.
Ghost in the Shell is beautiful. It's a little different. It is compared to Red, but just it really appeals to maybe not knowing what FBCs are like, but I feel like Ghost in the Shell is like the closest we get to full body conversions in other media.
I mean,
it's like what, only their brains that get moved over?
Yeah, I think it's been a while since I've actually watched the show, but I think that's how it goes, because I can't remember her name. Holy fuck. Her entire body is just a machine, except for her mind and her brain.
Yeah, so
the commander, whatever her name is.
Yeah. So yeah, very much, that is a great example of what we have for FBCs. Another one of my other favorites for examples of FBCs, but also when the law is owned by corporations. RoboCop 1 and 2. All right, 1 and 2. great movies. Number 3, there's a reason it's not included in the book. Because it really asks the question, am I, protecting, am I serving the, the public, or am I serving the corporation?
I guess to a lesser extent, the remake for RoboCop.
Yeah.
Because it just sort of does the same thing as the first movie, except half-assed.
Yeah. One of the other ones that I can think of, Mad Max. Mad Max is another one of those series that, while it may not really scream to the urban cyberpunks, very much, nomads. You're fighting for the resources out in the waste. Having to, take what you can and kill for what you don't have.
See, I think it depends more on the type of nomad you're going for.
Wraiths, Wrath and Shiv, Snake Nation,
Okay.
Like the very independent groups that don't have these massive networks of people to help them.
But if you're going for like a more urban type of nomad, I would probably look more towards like Fast and Furious for
The
basically
racers.
car guy culture.
Yep. Oh, I can't
People
believe it.
committing-
We went to the moon for family.
People committing massive crimes for family.
Oh yeah, I mean, nomads will do anything for family. Now, The Matrix.
I don't agree with The Matrix.
I mean, we pull from it for hacker culture in Cyberpunk to a degree.
I guess, but I feel like that's more Johnny Mnemonic than anything.
Oh yeah, Johnny Mnemonic is fantastic for that. But I don't know. I like the Matrix really does show like this very oppressive society where it's very much, the nail that sticks up gets the hammer, and
that's not at all what that's about.
Well, I mean, the first one, like, suddenly you break the illusion, and now you being exposed to the illusion, they're trying to kill you at this point.
I don't know. I don't think so. It's more about trying to break free from the system, I think, is what you want to go for.
Well, that honestly does... It's very much like Edge Runners, where you are not a cog in the machine, but you are not also part of the wealthy the wealthy upper class. You're just not a part of it. You ride the edge of it.
I think Alien and The Matrix are just one step too far.
Though, I don't know. I mean, I think the style, like some of the fashion choices in The Matrix, it kind of works. I think it kind of works.
I mean, black leather, not leather, black. I guess it is kind of leather, isn't it?
Yeah, the black faux leather trench coat. I mean, it really screams to like the Cyberpunk 2020 aesthetics. Like I think I think Maximum Mike in like the old or maybe Morgan Blackhand. I think it's Morgan Blackhand had the long trench coat look back in the 2020 books. And of course, games. We've got let me go pull up the old Steam library here. We've got Deus Ex, Human Revolution, Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, which just shows like how drastically separate people can be over things, and it can really push society to the brink of war. Of course, something that Scarlett's played before, and I think it really screams much more to the let's see, Ghost Runner. It's very much more future punk, but
yeah, it still fits, I think, because it's still relatively the same theme.
I mean, you got mercenaries who are for hire after you, or they work for a very shadowy higher power that once you dealt with.
I mean, if we're gonna go like, I guess to the opposite end of that spectrum, I think Metal Gear kind of fits in there too.
Metal Gear does.
Metal Gear 4 is all about information control, emotion control, lots of little things like that, proxy wars, and a new war economy.
So, yeah.
5 PMCs running everything around the world.
And when you look at these games, these are the experiences that you can have. You don't have to have like IRL experience with these things. These games, these movies, these books, they help you bridge that gap between you and your character when you don't have those experiences. Hell, let me see what other stuff in here we can pull from. I guess Final Fantasy VII to a degree really has that split society.
7, I feel like fits more along the lines of steampunk.
I mean, aesthetic-wise, yes, but like we look at like.
I think if you're gonna pull it back to Final Fantasy, it should just be punk as a genre.
Fair enough, but you have all these different sectors in the city that you're part of this class of people. You get to live in that sector of the city. You're
it's
wealthier.
Only that one city though, which is kind of where the problem is with that. Beyond that city, it's more steampunk.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, with the city itself, sort of like how Cyberpunk tends to be wrapped around Night City, where if you're part of like a certain group, you stay in a certain lane. What we got from Kaiser?
Altered Carbon. I haven't watched that myself, but I heard good things about it. I should maybe look into that. I think that's on Netflix. Is it Netflix only?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's Netflix only.
Netflix exclusive.
And I suppose on top of that, like when we're looking at things outside, does it look like Cyberpunk? I sometimes look at media and just like, how could I fit this into Cyberpunk? Somebody has suggested they wanted to be a nomad who lives out of their vehicle, but they also take levels of tech to cook drugs. Breaking Bad, anyone?
Why would a tech do that and not a med tech?
Techs are able to make drugs because it's an invention. Med techs are able to make
stretch.
Well, I mean, hell, Dirty Shirley from DangerGal.ca, she's a tech, and she cooks drugs.
Far be it for me to correct the people who actually make the game, but to me that seems a little bit of a stretch. I feel like that would fit more with medtech than anything.
I think
chemicals,
I think medtechs, it's very much more the practice of medicine in a world where education is so like shit. Apparently,
I guess. I mean, it depends where the line is between science and medicine.
And also, apparently, if you played River's Timeline in Cyberpunk, you are in a middle school in 2045, a public middle school. Imagine what the education is like at that point. I bet it fucking sucks. I bet it's awful.
Can't be worse than what we have now, I'll be honest.
I bet it's worse.
Oh, I wanted to make an inappropriate joke, but I won't.
Some of the other things that can really help... Hell, let me look see what other games we've gotten here.
Valhalla's good.
Valhalla, yes.
If you've never played Valhalla, it's basically perfect.
Yeah.
When it comes to Cyberpunk, I mean, if you haven't played it, go play it. honestly.
You're looking at it from the bartender's point of view, but everyone's got a story. Some people have more interesting stories than others. Others, you really just want to punch in the face. Others seem to have a real issue with letting go of their past, so they have to hire a hooker for reasons. You can find out
but
more.
at the same time though, you can see clear outlines of any given character's background. You can tell who a media is or a rocker boy just from looking at them or the way they act.
Fun fact.
Very specifically the lawmen, because they're just like, give me the strongest drink.
Fun fact. Did you know that this past year for April Fool's chat, Artal got together with the folks over there to make a nice little DLC called Mixing Drinks, Changing Lives, where it brings the Valhalla cast to Night City, and they put them in a nice place that has like no landmarks, and it works so nicely. You can check out more. It is for free over on Artal's website. That's it. That's all I'm leaving there. I've also had someone mention that Far Cry 5 kind of touches on when we have cults who are so afraid of everything outside that they become like this army. And honestly, the Inquisitors, I feel like the Inquisitors really scream to that. And same for the Reckoners. And Reckoners are a doomsday cult.
I don't think the cults in Far Cry 5 are afraid of the outside. I think they just like control.
Well, it's just, all the sinners at the gate are, going to, get rid of us if we don't do something about it. It's kind of how it feels.
It's very much inspired off of a lot of IRL cults.
And also, look back to history. If you're a history buff, there is all sorts of great concepts you could pull from your characters. I mean, hell, Sasha is creating a character that's inspired, and I'm only saying inspired by she has no affiliation with any dangerous organizations, but her bomb tech is inspired off of a certain Irish organization that is a little that there's a little bit of some stuff about bombs with that group.
I wouldn't know. I don't know anything about that.
The IRA,
unfortunately.
Which I don't think it's like directly the IRA. I'm not sure what
IRA.
exactly. I think it's the Irish Rebellion Army, or I'm not sure what exactly, but
Irish Republican Army,
possibly. But then, of course, we've got, gosh, who else has inspired things off of history before? Oh, I do have a player in another game who inspired their character to be a fantastic rifleman, inspired off of a certain Finnish sniper, and his favorite marks is Militech operatives, and he's very good about picking them off. And also does a lot of drugs in the process. A lot of drugs.
Yeah, of course.
And then finally, other ways that you can kind of help bring you and your character closer, even with different experiences. In the section running Cyberpunk, we have teams. You could form teams to kind of help, plant yourself in your character's shoes, and also find a way to relate with your fellow players, because it will make it easier for you to go yes and with your fellow players. In that case, we've got neo corporate teams. Maybe you guys work for a corp and you run missions for your boss. You have bands. You might be a group of rocker boys with some other folks that kind of help with the tech, or be the hustle.
But what if I wanted to be Batman?
A vigilante group? Yeah, we've got, let's see, Colts and booster gangs, Reclaimers, Trauma Team, Mercenaries, Gangs, Nomad packs. Lawmen, which I feel like lawmen kind of fall under where vigilantes enter. Media teams. And also, don't give up your day job. Maybe, you're just, a group of Joe Schmoes who, work a 9 to 5, but also do other stuff on the side. But anyway, I think on that note, we're going to wrap up this first half of the video here. Oh, I forgot to record. I'm just going to have to pull the VOD. I'll you know what? Seeing how it's just me, I'm just going to pull the VOD. Easy enough.
Yeah. Why not?
So, with that, we're going to go and I'm going to kick the other half of the episode over to Emmerron's channel, okay? You'll find me and Scarlett over there as well. And that's where we'll be doing part 2, where we're going to be talking about backgrounds in Cyberpunk and, like, how to really make a character based on those backgrounds. So, on that note, I'll see you guys in a bit. Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.